Hello guys, I'm Cambridge Rory or Cambridge English Teacher Rory from studentlanguages.com, and today I want to show you a video that I made a few months ago for my friend Lloyd and his EnglishTVLive private community. The video is all about how to prepare yourselves for exams fast, and this is going to be perfect for you if you want to study for an exam by yourself at home. So let's get going. So I am a big believer in helping people like you prepare yourself for exams for many reasons, really. I see a lot of students spending lots and lots of money taking private classes, going to language schools, and I don't think that's always necessary. I think that it is possible to prepare yourselves from home, particularly for the exams, which I'm going to focus on in today's lesson. And so I'd like to teach you guys how you can do that, because you will then not only save yourself money from going to private lessons or language schools, but you can also save yourselves time, and it's not always possible for someone to travel to a language school every day or every week to go to a lesson. So that's why I think it's useful, and we are lucky in this day and age where we have the internet and you guys can watch videos like this, so you can see teachers like myself and the other wonderful teachers that we have in this private community, especially like Lloyd and Terry and some of the other ones. It's wonderful that you can watch them on a weekly, if not a daily basis, and learn from them through the power of the internet. Okay, so that's enough of a general introduction from me, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go over to my presentation for you. The wonderful big picture of my face, and you have the Cambridge Rory. That's what if you want to find me on Instagram or anything, you can just type that in. So I am a Cambridge English exam preparation specialist. So what that means is I help students from all around the world pass the Cambridge exams. And specifically the exams that I focus on are called the B2 First, that's FCE, and the C1 Advanced, that's CAE. So those are for B2 or C1 level students, which is upper intermediate or advanced level students. Those levels A1 to C2 are based on what we call the CEFR, CEFR scale, and I talk about that in my ebook actually in a lot more detail, and I will talk about that later. But yeah, if you are unsure what I'm talking about when I say B2 or C1, B2 is upper intermediate and C1 is advanced. And I focus on the Cambridge English exams, which are focused at the upper intermediate or advanced level students. And if you go to my website, which is studentlanguages.com, you will find loads of useful information about those two Cambridge exams. There's a lovely picture of me again, Cambridge Rory. Also if you go on my social media channels, they're mainly focused around those Cambridge exams. So I also make videos. I have my YouTube channel, which you can see here, and I'm going to make a PDF version of this presentation for you guys, and I will upload that to the community afterwards, so you can click on all these links. If you want to go to my website or find me, you can go to this presentation after and click on these links, and hopefully that will work. So let's say you've sat down and maybe you've had a read of my ebook where I talk about the differences between the FCE exam and the IELTS exam. And you've sat down and you've thought to yourself, right, I want to do the FCE exam because I know that that certificate lasts for a lifetime, and I want to have those opportunities for a lifetime rather than the IELTS, which lasts for 2 years. I want my certificate to last longer, so I'm going to do the FCE exam. Now, how can I prepare myself in the best way for this exam? here is the first tip for you. Whichever exam you choose, what I advise to do first is to revise the format of the exam. And a good way to do this is just to type in the name of the exam, so for example, FCE, and then type in format into a search engine, for example, Google or Ecosia. I think it's pronounced Ecosia. I don't know if you've heard of it. I only found it recently, and the reason I like it is because apparently every time you search for something, trees are planted, and I just thought that was fantastic. So just seen a comment below which says I look like Dracula, part untold story, which made me giggle. City Bomb. I don't know whether to thank you or to be angry at that comment, but I quite like it. So I look a bit like Dracula apparently. Anyway, so back to this. Ecosia, is a search engine, or you could type into Google. So the name of the exam and then the format. Find the format of the exam. That is the first thing you should do. And then, once you know the format, so you know, for example, there is a listening part which lasts 45 minutes and has 4 sections. There is a reading part, there is a writing part, there is a speaking part. Once you know that format, you should then try to find and learn a strategy for each part of that exam. And what you need to do, it's important at this point, take your time to have a good look around on Google or on the internet generally, or in your local bookstore, to find really useful resources which teach you the strategy to pass this part of the exam. So there are loads and loads of really good grammar books in the world, really good English grammar books, but I'm not telling you to go away and learn the grammar. I'm telling you to find the resources which say how to pass this part of the exam using this strategy. And that's what I focus on a lot in my videos and on my website. I say to people, okay, for example, you have a multiple choice listening question in the exam. And what I say, for example, is cover the A, B, C, D options and just read the question and listen, and then write down what you think is the correct answer to that question. Don't look at the options. Just write down what you think is the correct answer. And then look at the options and see whether what you've written down matches one of those options, or which one is most similar to what you've written down. That's what I mean by learn the strategy. That is key. Learn the strategy for every part of the exam which you want to take. And a way you can do this, I recommend, is to go onto YouTube or to Google or another search engine and type in that part of the exam and then type the word strategy after it. And again, take your time. You might not find a good strategy at first, so take your time. Type in the name of the exam, the part of the exam you're focusing on, and then the word strategy, or the word tips, or the word technique. So here's an example, FCE Speaking Part 1 Strategy. Have a good look around, find a resource which is showing you what you should do in this part of the exam. Exam strategy is really, really important for pretty much every exam, because when the examiners are marking exams, they look to tick certain boxes for an exam. And if you know what to do, if you know what the examiners are looking for, which is what a good strategy should teach you, if you know what the examiners are looking for, you know, okay, I need to use linking words in this section of the exam. The examiners will be sitting there listening for linking words. They hear you use them, tick, better marks in the exam. I said before you need to have a good look around, because some strategies, they might be okay, but they may not be the best strategy out there. So don't just go with the first one you find. maybe have a look around, see, okay, there's this person who's saying to do this strategy, and there's this person who's doing this strategy. Okay, so sometimes that one might be better, or sometimes you may need to actually decide for yourself, let's put these two strategies together and create your own strategy. That's what I did quite often with my work. I saw someone's strategies, I saw someone else's strategies, I combined them to create the perfect strategy for different parts of the exams. And of course, you also should see which works for you, because maybe this guy is suggesting to do this for this part of the exam, and you try it, and it just doesn't work for you. For some reason, it doesn't work. But this guy over here is suggesting to use a different strategy, and you try it, and it's great. It works perfectly. So go with that one. You know, there isn't a one-size-fits-all. One strategy might work for you, but it might not work for another person. So test out the different strategies and see which one works best for you. Then check to see if the best resource also provides strategies for every other part of the exam. So once you've found that this strategy works really well for you, have a look, what's the name of the website, who wrote this? Okay, let's see if they have a strategy for every other part of this exam. And then stick with them if they do, but they might not, and you might need to go and look for the different parts of the exam with other resources. So if they do have a strategy that you like for every different part of the exam, great. If not, maybe you'll have to look for a different part of the exam with somebody else. Okay, step number 3. Now, this is really, really important as well. Once you have this strategy, the way to remember it is to practice, practice, practice. So take this strategy and practice using it over and over and over again with resources that you can find. Now, I suggest using a course book, because then you have and a new course book, because then you have the best, the newest, up-to-date materials all in one place. But of course, there are lots of other resources around on the internet. And once you've found a strategy from one person, this person might suggest a course book to use. And you know, you can choose. You can say, okay, I like the look of that course book, or I don't. If you want to have an idea for a couple of good general English books, which sometimes you may be able to practice a certain strategy with this book, then have a look at English Grammar in Use. Because, for example, I know that some of the questions for the FCE Use of English part are very similar to some of the exercises in English Grammar in Use. But this book generally is a really good book. I've used it with lots of students, and I can highly recommend it. Also, this book, again, there are exercises in this book which are very similar to exam exercises. So let's say you want to pass part 1 of the reading part of an exam, for example, CAE. So you know you want to pass part 1, you learn the strategy from the resource that you've found. Now you need to apply it. This book may have the answers for applying that strategy. So find materials that you can use to practice the strategy over and over and over again, because the more you practice, the quicker you become and the better you become. And as I said earlier, I tend to use books because it's good to have all the resources in one place. And you know that the materials can be up to date if you buy a new book. So, I mean, while you can find lots of free resources on the internet, maybe it's better to buy a book. If you want to buy a book, the first place I go to is Amazon. But on the other hand, if you decide, I don't have any money, I don't want to buy any books at all to prepare for this exam, then what you can do also is type in the name of the book and then type PDF after it, because you might find an old version of a course book which you can then practice with. And I do this sometimes, just type in the name of the book, PDF, find a PDF document, download it, and there are loads and loads of exercises in there. So that could be useful So the name of one book that I use with my students is Ready for Advanced. And if you type in Ready for Advanced PDF, you will maybe find a version of this book, which could be slightly old. So make sure you watch out for that. If it is old, then you need to find what the changes have been to this exam. But yeah, as I say, name of the book, PDF, could be a good way to find lots of useful resources. Okay, so step number 4, measure your progress. It's really important before you take an exam to measure your progress, to see whether or not you are good enough to pass this exam. And so there are 3 key questions that you should ask yourself. First is, how many marks do you need to pass the exam? Do you need 80% to pass an exam, or do you need 60% to pass an exam? I know that for the Cambridge exams that I teach, you need approximately 60% to pass that exam. Second key question is, do you need to pass every different exam paper to pass this exam? Do you need to pass the reading and the writing and the speaking and the listening in order to get the certificate? Or can you pass the reading, writing, listening, fail the grammar part, but still pass the exam? Or if you fail the grammar part, does that mean that you don't get the certificate? It's something to watch out for. Again, with the exams that I teach, it's an average. So you can pass, let's say, 4 of the 5 exam papers, fail 1 paper, but you can still pass the exam and get the certificate. The third question you should ask yourself is, are your timed practice test marks good enough to pass? So this is when preparing yourself is really important. And I'll talk about this more in a couple of minutes, but when you are practicing and preparing for the exam, you should time yourself, put yourself in exam conditions, and once you've finished practicing in those exam conditions, are your marks good enough to pass? If you need 60%, are your marks, and if it's an average, then are your marks good enough? Are they averaging over 60%? Or if you need to pass every exam paper, have you passed every exam paper? So are your timed practice test marks good enough to pass the exam? Some other quick questions that are useful to know for any exam. Can you write in a pen or a pencil? Try to find the answer for these questions. Can you cross out words in the writing part? And do you need to transfer your answers at the end to a separate answer sheet? Because that is something you need to do in the Cambridge exams. That can take time. That can take 5 minutes. And those 5 minutes taken away from your exam time. You need to save time to do that sometimes in certain exams. You need to save time to move your answers from the question paper to the answer sheet. And another thing is, can you write on the question paper? Maybe they say you're not allowed to write on the question paper. Find out the answers to those questions. That will help you when you are preparing yourself in the exam conditions. Then what I say is to buy a practice test book. You can also find sample tests online, but you should practice with some real sample materials, some exam sample materials. So either with a practice test book or find sample papers on the internet. And again, to find these, you can just type the name of the exam and then type sample test afterwards. Okay, so what did we have? Revise the format of the exam. Step number 2. For step number 3 is to, see if you can remember, learn an exam strategy. So revise the format, learn an exam strategy, practice, okay, with a course book, then practice with sample tests. 1 second, I'm just getting back to the place where I was. Okay, so here I am. Then, just as a quick aside, if you decide you want to do the B2 first or the C1 Advanced Cambridge exams, then I can recommend a couple of test books for you, which are this one. For the B2 first exam, you can practice with these tests, or this book for the C1 Advanced exam. These are test books, so this is what you should do in your 4th step. So revise the format, learn the exam strategy, practice, practice, practice with resources, then measure your progress with a test book or with sample papers. If you also want to measure your progress for the Cambridge exams, you can always speak to me after this lesson and we can talk about booking lessons if that's what you would like to do. Then, as I've said many times, when you are doing this step, when you are practicing with your sample tests, make sure you do it in exam conditions. So you want to time yourself. And I was teaching a student yesterday. What I told him is, have 2 clocks, one for the overall time for that exam paper. So in the CAE exam, there is a reading and use of English section, which takes 90 minutes. So I said to him, clock 1, 90 minutes. Clock 2 is for you to start and stop every time you complete one part of the exam. So in the reading and use of English section, which lasts 90 minutes, there are 8 parts in the CAE paper. And I said to him, you've got your 90-minute clock, and then you've got your watch. For part 1, start the time. Answer the questions to part 1. At the end of part 1, stop the time. Write down how long it takes you for each individual part. And that can be a really useful thing to do because in some exams, you don't need to follow the same order. And so for that exam, you don't need to follow the order. So for example, you can start on part 4, then go to part 7, then go back to part 1. And so that's why knowing how long it takes to do each part and knowing which part you are normally better at is going to give you a really good indication of where you should start in the exam. So I know that I can complete part 4 exercises in a faster time and that I get better marks for that part of the exam. So I'm not going to, in the exam, I'm not going to start with part 1, I'm going to go to part 4 because I know I can do it quickly and I know I can get better marks. So, once you've figured out those things, you know, hopefully, whether or not, you can start with your stronger and quicker areas. And hopefully you will be able to do that, and that could save you lots of marks in the exam. Then, 5th point is to focus on your weak areas. So, extra focus on your weak areas. So I know that part 3 of the reading and use of English is a really, really hard part of the exam for me. So I'm going to focus particularly on that part of the exam. And you can base your knowledge of which parts you're better and worse at through the sample papers you're doing in the time practice, or just through your other practice with your resources and course books. Yeah, maybe you need to focus on listening, maybe you need to focus on grammar, maybe writing. And so doing sample papers will be a really good indicator of which part you need to focus on. Then step number 6 is to book your exam. So you can do it just by typing in something like IELTS exam, Russia. Then you can find your nearest exam center. The name of the exam and then the city that you're living in or the country that you're living in. And if you want to do a Cambridge exam, they have a website which you can use to find exam centres in your country or even in your city. And so you can go to this website, and I will show you very quickly. Why not? So if you want to do the CAE exam, for example, you can go to this website, choose a location. Let's say, I don't know, Barbados. It's probably not a very popular one. I don't know where most of you guys are from, so why not write in the comments which country are you from? which city are you living in? Let's go with Spain, and let's see which exam centres I can go to do the B2 first, or FCE. In Spain, I can go to lots of different regions, Andalusia, all of these different exam centres. So if you want to do a Cambridge exam, you can go to this website to find this website here to find your nearest exam centre. And if you want to do your exam in Cambridge because you feel like travelling to Cambridge, or maybe you live in Cambridge already, you can go to this website. But probably most of you are not from Cambridge, so it might not be useful for you. Then, after you've booked your exam, you need to wait for a response from the exam body. Maybe they'll respond immediately, confirming your time via email, but in my experience, I've had students book exams and they haven't heard back from the exam body for weeks. In fact, some of them not even until a week before the exam. And if you've booked an exam, especially if you've paid for it, that can be pretty worrying. So wait to hear back from them. And if you don't hear back from them, then you might need to call them up and ask them just to confirm that they have you booked in for that exam. Make sure that you confirm the location of your exam, the date and the time of your exam. Because if you know those three things, the location, the date and the time, then you can plan yourself properly for exam day. And that's also really important. Okay, so on the exam day, you're going to be feeling stressed, probably. You're going to be a bit nervous and anxious, and so you want to make this day as stress-free as possible. So you want to plan in advance. For example, how are you going to travel to the exam? I know the exam is 20 miles away. We use miles in English, or 30 kilometers. Maybe most of you guys will be using kilometers. 30 kilometers away, and it's on a Saturday. So how can I get there? The trains aren't running on a Saturday, so I'm going to need a car. But I don't have a car. I need to find somebody who is reliable, who can take me to that exam centre. So plan that. Plan your exam day in advance so you can make it stress-free, because you're going to be stressed enough as it is, probably. Unless you're a very cool customer who never gets anxious. But I tend to get a little bit nervous before exams, so I would plan this day as best as possible beforehand. Cool customer, maybe that's a new expression for you. Okay, so yeah, think about what time you need to get there. Think about how you will get there. So, a quick summary for you then. I don't know if you can remember how many steps we talked about, so let's have a quick look. These are my steps to success. 1. Learn an exam format. 2. Learn a strategy for every part of exam. 3. Practice that strategy over and over and over again. Then measure your progress. Do sample tests. Make sure you do them in exam conditions. From that knowledge that you have gained from those sample tests, focus on the areas where you are failing the exam. Focus on your weaknesses. Then book your exam. Then check your exam details. And then plan your exam day. Okay, so I'd like to say thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you found the information in this presentation useful. Even if you're not interested in doing exams, it's probably really useful for you to listen to native speakers like myself talking. That will be good for your listening practice, if nothing else. But hopefully, some of you may be thinking about taking exams, and therefore, hopefully, it will have been useful for you. As I say, if you want to pass the Cambridge B2 First, FCE, or C1 Advanced, CAE exams, then I really recommend having a look at my website, which is studentlanguages.com. And you can click this link in the presentation afterwards. And if you want an exam video course for free, a free video course to pass a section of the exams that I focus on, or if you want to find out more details about different types of exams and compare some of them, and yeah, if you just loads more useful information, then you can also download my free ebook. And if you just need to follow this link here and sign up, and then I will send it to you immediately with a free exam video course. I think in that video course there is over 50 minutes of video lessons, so it could be really useful for you. Then if you want to follow me more closely, I would love it if you guys subscribe to my YouTube channel, of course. Yeah, if you subscribe and you watch my videos, it helps my channel grow. So if you enjoyed this, I would really love it if you did that. Or you can follow me on Instagram, Cambridge Rory, hashtag Cambridge Rory. Or if you are a teacher and you want to make a little bit of extra pocket money, then I've been working on a new project, which is an affiliate scheme, where I'm helping teachers earn a little bit more cash by recommending my products to their students. It helps me, it helps you, but it can also help your students if you find those products useful. And of course, my products are all based around the Cambridge exams, so it will only really be useful for you if you have students who want to do the Cambridge exams. Okie dokie, so that is the end of my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it, guys. I've been Cambridge English teacher Rory from studentlanguages.com, and I hope to see you all again very, very soon. Bye-bye.